Hello everybody, my name is Caroline Molloy. Today I'm going to talk to you about Provoking Practice, Visualising Community, the Women of Walsall. I would like to thank the organisers for selecting my abstract, and I am going to apologise in advance. This is the first time I've done a format like this, and I have to say I'm not terribly comfortable with it. But I hope the intent and the aims of the presentation come through as I narrate these slides. So I'm interested in the politics of representation, in particular, who is seen and who has the right to be seen. This presentation shares a visual abstract of a practice as research project drawn from a longer film, The Women of Walsall, made in collaboration with Walsall for All, whilst on residency in the town of Walsall. It is Arts Council and Heritage Lottery funded via the Living Memory Project, and it was made between 2019 and 2020. The aim of this presentation is to speak about how community can be visualised through practice. The mission statement for Walsall for All, the collaborator for this project, is to create integrated, empowered, inclusive communities. This is what I hope to be able to achieve, or I hoped to achieve with this work by the end of it. For this presentation, I will contextualise what I'm calling a participatory project. To do this, I will share my motivation and aims, narrate the project, the process, challenges, successes, and then show a short film clip that draws from the larger body of work. So just to let you know how I came to be doing this, I answered an open call from the Living Memory Project, and they were offering a small amount of money to fund work within the local archives across the Black Country. The remit of the Living Memory Project aims to explore and celebrate everyday stories connected to personal images and family albums. And this is an area I was very interested in, am very interested in, and this felt the ideal opportunity to make some work to talk to this in a sense. But I'm going to talk now a little bit about my motivation of getting involved. And it was twofold, the reasons I got involved in this project. I had recently done a piece of work called 209 Women. I hadn't done a piece of work. 209 women had been commissioned, I was one of these women, to photograph every single female MP at the end of 2018 to mark the point at which women got the vote. This work then was shown in Westminster Palace and then moved on to the Art Gallery, and it now sits as a living archive in Westminster. I was struck how we were promoting and showcasing women who had made significant contributions, but I was also interested what happens to those women that have and do contribute to society. What happens to the other women that aren't visualised in this way, and how can we give them visibility? I was also working on a piece of work with my mum called In Correspondence with My Mother. Around that time, 2018-2019, we were discussing our familial history through family photographs. I was particularly interested in photographs of my grandmother. These photographs are of my grandmother in her work clothes. She was a dinner lady. And I was interested in how the socio-cultural politics flowed through these images in discussion with my mother. For example, my mum told me in 1972 equal pay rights came in, and there was an equalising pay between her mother, my grandmother, as a dinner lady and a dustman. This made me curious to think about how the socio-demographic of a contemporary dinner lady. And these ideas seemed to chime with what the Living Memory Project was doing. So I was interested in thinking about, well, what if I found a small group of contemporary dinner ladies, or I found some archival pictures of dinner ladies in the Black Country where this project was based, and I could kind of build on that and find out more about what it's like to be a dinner lady today. And I was curious within that context what current socio-political conversations might come through. So anyway, I was very pleased to get the award based on this proposal. I had identified a couple of archives I was interested in working with. Unfortunately, I wasn't given access to either of those archives. I was allocated to a community garden in Walsall. Now, I should add, I was living in the West Midlands at the time, working in the West Midlands in Coventry, but this was in Walsall, which was a good hour on the train away from Coventry, and I'd not been there and I didn't know the area at all. So I was a little bit like, I'm not quite sure how to make this work. And there was some confusion over there was no strategic support. I had thought there would have been. And also within the gardens, they'd already placed an artist there who was working with the volunteers. So finding a way to find a group to work with was quite challenging. Anyway, moving on. To assert my presence in the community and try and meet people and try and think about how could I find a group of women to work with and get back to the core of what I was interested in. Even if I wasn't going to work with dinner ladies, could I find a group of local women and through conversations and photographs find out a little bit more about the local culture. So I set up a pop-up photography studio that coincided with the cultures of Walsall in the community gardens. Now the motivation was just to kind of assert my presence, and I photographed local people and gave them portraits that I sent at the end of the day. Very, very busy day. I wasn't really looking to move the idea forward at the time, just kind of to say, look, I'm here, this is what I'm doing. The portraits were just family portraits, people smiling, sent into the family. But then I had to really think about how am I going to make this project work. These are purposely blurred really to give you something to look at while I talk about my strategy, because I had to think about, I needed some strategic partners to work with and a way to develop the research in a slightly different way. So I reflected on my aims of the project and what was manageable both in the time frame and the budget, and identified I was interested in raising the visibility of local women. But also I was interested in, well, what about creating a living archive, in a sense, of contemporary women? What could this tell us about Walsall right now? So the aim was to work with the women creatively and raise their visibility, but I still needed partners. And the break for me came when I did this pop-up studio. I tweeted it, and Dr. Irina Hergotova from the who looked after community equality and cohesion under Walsall for All, part of the council, retweeted one of my tweets, and I found a way to introduce myself to her, and she introduced me to Zara Khan, who was the Officer for Gender and Equality. Now, Zara was my strategic support that made this happen. I'm very much indebted to this woman. She's very passionate about equality and keen to show that women, there was a breadth of women in terms of kind of age, class, culture, race, professions, intersection. She also sits on a number of local communities, committees, including the Black Sisters of Walsall, the Federation of Gypsies, that represents Gypsies, Travellers and Romany rights. And she was able to negotiate me access into a number of different community centres. She arranged for me to set up a photography studio in a number of local areas that tied in with the winter celebration. So we knew that the turnout of the community was going to be high, and I offered portraits of family members in exchange for a portrait of the women to be part of the project. Now, I did my very best to explain what I was doing so the women felt and understood what the work was about. And I went into these different events over the Christmas area. And I made this body of work called the Women of Walsall. So the final body of work evolved out of this residency and aims to raise the visibility of women in the market town of Walsall. And by this, I mean I'm interested in bringing together and celebrating the collective community of women in Walsall. When I speak of community, I'm thinking about Anderson, who refers to a community as an imagined community. He describes an imagined community as a social construct of people who perceive themselves as part of a group with similar interests, or those who collectively identify with each other despite the fact they may never actually meet face to face. Anderson uses the term to define nation. However, it seems to equally apply to members of a localised community who have self-defined themselves as belonging to Walsall. In this case, the Women of Walsall project includes women who live in Walsall, women who work in Walsall, women who study in Walsall, women who play in Walsall, women who were born and bred in Walsall, women who've migrated to Walsall for a number of reasons. And what these women all have in common is they're all women of Walsall. Now, I had to come up with a strategy that was very simple, very plain, that meant that I could move the backdrop around to different centres and it looked consistent. I also talked my way into the archive. There is an archive in Walsall run by the council, and I was interested in how women were visualised within that archive. I found a number of prominent people in the archive, and also I was interested in how women collectively were shown. I took a deep dive into the archive to investigate how the women are represented. This process revealed photographs of women in labour, and this includes machine girls, and I use the term used by the archive, not necessarily a term I would choose. Historical figures like Sister Dora, Ada Newman, who were the first female councillor, Edna Hughes, an Olympic swimmer, Gertrude Creswell, the first female mayor. So to give you a sense, these were some of the archival pictures. A lot of the information was unclear. And a mixture of the women, the archive I was building set next to these archival pictures. But part of the aim of the project was to show the project back to the community. I'm making an archive for you to show to you. So we came up with this event, again working with Sarah and Walsall for All, called Raising Her Voice. It was an International Women's Day. We hired out the crossing at St Paul's, which was a former church. There were stalls during the day of local community groups. It was women focused, although men and women were there. There were free tea and cakes all day. So that we had an events 1 till 3, and then at 4 o'clock we cleared the room and we had a panel discussion. And these are some of the photographs that took place. And actually, it was literally the week before lockdown. So we were all very, very nervous of who might turn up, how safe it was. It feels an awful long time ago now. So the day was called Raising Her Voice, and I chaired a panel. And what I should say, I've slightly brushed over it, but the whole point as well was to actually show my work. So during the day, all this event was going on. The photographs of the local women were just up on a screen and staying on screen and moving forward regularly. And we invited all the women that participated, and the idea is that they would come during the day or to the panel. I had students with a pop-up photography event going on as well. We had an awful lot of things to do for the local community. We then had this panel in the evening that I chaired, and it had a number of local prominent women that talked about their role in the community. It was a really great, uplifting day. These are my panel of speakers, particular Chrissy, that she's has had cancer and had to shave her hair off, and did a very moving speech around loving yourself and loving your body. And then the day was capped off by this wonderful poet called Shenaz Hafeez, who composed a poem for the day. We also planned to have a female choir singing at the end of the day, but because it's pre-COVID and they were over 60, they were unable to do it. However, that's what it was. So it was a really great day in which my photographs were part of this whole event that raised the visibility of women. I then recut the film in line with Shaz's poem. So what I'm going to show you now is just a knit section of the poem, of the film.
The women in my life. Soft, weak or frail, or strong, compassionate and powerful. The women in my life. They are the ones who find joy in seeing a beautiful rainbow. They are the ones that smile seeing a newborn. They are the ones that cry for the loss of humanity and are ready to fight to set things right. The women in my life. They are the ones that comfort others in a thunderstorm, despite being scared themselves. They are the ones that are up all night despite being really tired themselves. They are the ones that will guide you, even when they are lost themselves. The women in my life. They are the ones that I reach out to for guidance and support. They are the ones that see my struggle of trying to find myself. They are the ones that have my back. The women in my life. They are housewives, shop workers, teachers, pharmacists or social workers. And despite being professionals, they are mothers, sisters, daughters, good friends, and so much more. Are they soft, weak or frail? Or are they strong, compassionate and powerful? They are the women in my life. The women in my life. Soft, weak or frail, or strong, compassionate and powerful. The women in my life. They are the ones who find joy in seeing a beautiful rainbow. They are the ones that smile seeing a newborn. They are the ones that cry for the loss of humanity and are ready to fight to set things right. The women in my life. They are the ones that comfort others in a thunderstorm, despite being scared themselves. They are the ones that are up all night despite being really tired themselves. They are the ones that will guide you, even when they are lost themselves. The women in my life. They are the ones that I reach out to for guidance and support. They are the ones that see my struggle of trying to find myself. They are the ones that have my back. The women in my life. They are housewives, shop workers, teachers, pharmacists or social workers. And despite being professionals, they are mothers, sisters, daughters, good friends, and so much more. Are they soft, weak or frail? Or are they strong, compassionate and powerful? They are the women in my life.
Now, I'm about to go over time, so I'd like to say thank you very much. At the moment, this work is at the new Art Gallery Walsall and is part of the Living Memory publication on the project. Thank you very much.